Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account. We're going to be looking at probably one of the most important things when it comes to AFK Arena, and that is campaign formations. Now, there are a lot of different campaign formations, and the guide that I'm going to share today is really on par with what we seen years ago from White Sushi, breaks down all of the very common team comps, and I want to kind of run through the pros and cons of some of them and looking at a lot of the meta heroes that we do see within this formation because it is super interesting. So let's hop over and take a look at this. Now, I think this is Swavir's Visual Guide to Mid-Late Campaign. These are the commonly used teams, and I really want to run through because a lot of these heroes are core heroes, are really best in slot heroes. Some of them not so much, especially when it comes to some of these comps, but there are a lot in here that are the primary ones that are the driving force when it comes to breaking down the campaign. I will put a link down below to the guide because this is very epic when it comes to looking at this. So first one, of course, this is probably one of the most controversial, I would say, which is the Thoren cheese. So this really revolves around the original version of Thoren, and the way that this works is everybody gets grouped in together, and then Thoren has a retaliation ability when you do get a signature item. He does have the ability to do this twice with the signature item. That is why he requires a plus 30 signature item. 9 of 9 furniture on here, and I would not and do not recommend engraving him. And you'll notice that everyone within these pictures does use Dura's artifact. Now, again, depending on the team comp, depending on who you're using, it's going to make a big difference. Now, one thing to note with the Thoren cheese is this is not just a formation that you can put into any team comp and is going to work. It really depends on the heroes you have, because if you have a burst team, this is going to work well. If you have a team that is a little bit more support or a little bit more crowd control, the Thoren cheese usually does not work at all. So unfortunately, it is kind of very unique in the way that it works. So varies a lot, often uses Dura's Eye, which we've seen. You can see there are a lot of different heroes in here. Now, two of the ones really to note is the Iran Skarath. This is a really big one to group pull everyone together. And then the other really big one in here is Pippa. So Pippa will have the ability to actually teleport Thoren to the area with the densest concentration of enemies, dropping him really in that enemy back line and helping everyone in there. Some of the nice to haves like Lorzin in there, even looking at a couple in here. Energy, provide haste with Leica. But overall, this is a huge one when it comes to building this out. And like I said, with the Thoren cheese, there are only very specific places that this one is going to work. And probably out of them, and I know going again, old school Javid has always said that the Thoren cheese with the RNG was the second most random formation that we see within AFK Arena. And the most random and really the most RNG one is Liberta Charm. So this actually uses, again, very old school heroes. Now you have to be cautious with this. And this is also why a lot of players are not and do not build comps like the Thoren cheese. Is if you think about the heroes that we have within the Thoren cheese, there are a lot of heroes that you have to build up just to get it to work, including Thoren himself. And a lot of players nowadays don't really invest. So if you look at some of the team comps we're seeing today, they're not really using the Thoren cheese like we've seen. And it is the exact same can be seen with the Liberta Charm. Now this, of course, you do have to have Mihira. Now, one thing to note with Mihira, doesn't really have to be built up incredibly high. Doesn't have a lot of utility if you build her up, 5 stars, max out, engraving, all of that. Really doesn't make a big difference with the Liberta Charm, because when you start getting into higher level deficiencies, you'll get run over if it doesn't work. And you'll also notice that she does have a class specific collection in here, or an artifact, which is the Windbinder. It starts her with an initial energy out of there, which again does incredibly well. You'd have to go back and you'd actually have to run that. Now you notice also that we have Tassy's collection on just about everyone. Now the reason for this is if the front line dies, the Tassy collection will keep them alive. If they die multiple times, it is game over, and this comp will just absolutely cripple. And this is really the way that it works is you have the Shroom Splooter, which is going to go in there, and it is going to crowd control targets. Then you also do have Mihira, which is going to make the targets attack each other. Everybody else is just putting them together. So when they do get charmed, they will fight each other. And that is where, it's really big. Now you have Liberta in here that will do a considerable amount of damage. but majority of the team is just about killing itself. Now, even when we look at some of the other heroes like a Khazard in here, does require the plus 30 signature item to work. But again, I don't know if it's really worth it, even looking like Khanis and Rook, if it would be worth it nowadays to actually build this up just for a formation. I think there'd be a lot of other sub teams in here. And then even looking down here, like I said, Shroom Splitter works well. I know a lot of teams within here that I've personally ran also use the Fox Fatale, which provides the crowd control, the charm aspect, very similar to what we see with Mihira. But ultimately, with the Shroom Splitter, it does have the taunt effect, so your enemy is not going to take damage until Mihira can charm them. And then you just kind of start this super speed rotation with making sure that everyone's charmed and the team actually kills themselves. Now, the Awakened version of Blinda, ever since the release of Blinda, this was an absolute broken combination. And this is also one of the big reasons why players still do build Ulna. Ulna is used not only in the Treasure Scramble, but also used in a majority of campaign formations. And this formation is only and 100% all about getting the Awakened version of Blinda to ult. That's it. That is really all that you want in here. Is if Blinda can ult, it starts a chain reaction with the energy regeneration that we see from Ivan, and then also back here with Lavatune. And Blinda, of course, being frontline, is not going to die because you do have Ulna in there with the Winter's Call, and then you have Demia in here, which with the ultimate ability, if you're running that Mihiro's Wings, you can't really kill her. The Wing Binder usually sometimes used. Wings is really the one that I always use with it. And looking at our flex heroes, now this is a comp where the flex heroes do make a big difference, because when we start running through those absolute top tier heroes, when you look at Palmer and Aurelia, Demia, you have Ivan, you have Jerome, you have Shuna, all of those are absolutely top tier SS heroes that you want to build within AFK Arena. Really, Adrian and Lise is a little bit more niche, and Hilduin, if you did not get Hilduin for free, I do not recommend building Hilduin at all, just because of the sheer cost of those highborn draconic heroes. And of course, in here, Treat Spectator is usually the one we see. Sometimes we do see the Panda Dumpty in here, just for the fact that he has the ability to hide the Awakened version of Blinda, so she actually won't take damage. And then we do have crowd control in here with the Ice Crown, but 3 very, very strong comps indeed. And then we look at some of the new comps. Now, this is a new comp. The core is Envy. Now, one thing to note with Envy, he requires a build. Guys, when you look at the damage that Envy can really produce, it does require the plus 30 or plus 40 signature item, the 9 of 9 furniture, the 60 engraving or the 67 engraving, really getting him. This is a core where if you do not have Envy built, unfortunately, it's going to be another team. Now, also note in here that you have Ivan in here, which is, of course, going to put up that shield for Envy. Once Envy ults, the energy regeneration and the attack rating is going to go up. Nox in here, and looking at the 2 hypos, the Awakened version of Shamira going to keep everyone alive. And then we do have Meleon in here as a buffer. And then you'll also get your Owl right here. Now, the Owl will put the little radius over Envy almost every single time that they have him in here, because he is super broke. Now, you'll notice as well that most of the support heroes in the campaign, again, do run that Tassy collection, for the simple fact that they need the cheat death when you start getting to high level deficiencies. It really does make a big difference. But again, looking even through here, meta heroes, Meleon used Shuna, the Awakened version of Shamira. Looking at Misha, yes, absolutely used. Looking at Ivan, yep. Nox, yep. Tamaris, yep. Most of those, again, and even looking in here, the flex would be if you're running Ulna. And if you do run a comp with Ulna, you would want Envy frontline. That way he does get that Winter's Call ability. And again, if you're running Hilduin in a formation, I do not recommend building him right now unless you do already have him built or got him for free. Getting him for free out of the guild shop is good, but I do not recommend going in there and summoning for him at all. Now, again, this is another one that is relatively new, which is the Awakened version of Iran. Now, you'll notice, again, very similar to what we see with Envy, does require a considerable build out, but this is all about crowd control. When you look at the example team, the Awakened version of Iran is going to perform a crazy amount of crowd control. Aethys is going to provide crowd control. Kelthan in here is going to provide crowd control. Then you have Shuna, and then you have Aurelia for the really big buffs within here. Even though Aurelia as a mage has a super strong kit when it comes to buffs, does work incredibly well. And of course, you are just going to lock everyone down. Then you put in the Ice Crown, which provides crowd control. So literally, it's going to be kind of a slow burn in here to get everyone down with the crowd control, the grouping, going to keep everyone together. So Iran's giant vortexes or tornadoes can just run through there. Now you'll notice again, when we start looking at our meta heroes, they vary similar in a lot of formations. We have the Misha. Now we do see Misha run with him a lot because they are both wilder heroes, and Misha is incredible when you put that defense collection on there. Also Zora running here again for the crowd control, bringing everyone together makes a big difference. Now this is another interesting one, the Matria comp. Now again, today, this day and age, I probably wouldn't recommend building out Matria just because utility isn't there. But if you have Matria already built, this formation does work incredibly well. You have the awakened version of Thoren in here, which is going to die. You have Matria in here, which is going to die. Fox Fatale is going to charm everyone, allowing them to attack themselves. Also running in here, we have Khazard and we have Namora. Now, a lot of questions come up about this time because Khazard is going to be able to reduce the enemy's dissolve and increase the charm duration by that 50%. And of course, Namora does have the Beguile ability. So Namora will actually crowd control as well as the Fox Fatale, as well as the other heroes in the formation. It is very interesting to see. Now, Lorazin can link together, and then Tamaris can put them together. Milion can put them together, but does require a plus 30 with Khazard. 9 of 9 furniture for Namora. That is the Beguile ability. If you do not have the 9 of 9, it's not going to work with the radius. So what happens with Namora is if an enemy gets within and gets close to her, they will automatically be charmed and go back to the enemy side to attack the enemies. And then you also notice Thoren in there with the 9 of 9. Now, this is a comp that I haven't seen ran a lot as of lately, and newer comps seem like they are replacing quite a bit of this. Now, Tassy Twins, this is another one where you're running the Draconic version of Gwen. Very interesting. And you'll notice the collections. We are running 4 Tassy collections just because, again, we don't want the heroes to die in here. And it's interesting core DPS, running Tassy and the twins in here. Now, when you start getting into very high level deficiencies, we have seen some really random formations, even a lot like running Liberta with 2 other heroes in formations. There's been a lot of really odd formations that have been run. You can see usually the flight collections, and then the big damage dealer in here is going to be the Draconic version of Gwen. Her damage is insane. If you get her ulting, if you get her turning into the dragon form, her damage goes through the roof. It also looks like Iran is an option in here. And then we have Rendell or Palmer as a buffer within there as well. And you can see again, Ice Crown for that crowd control. When you start again, getting into high level deficiencies, if you do not crowd control, you will get absolutely run over. And that we've seen kind of time and time again. Now, if you are early game to AFK Arena, this is the broken comp. So this is the combination between Ivan and Rendell. We have players that have been 2-3 days into AFK Arena, already into chapter 31, 32, just based on this comp. Now you also do have Aethys, crazy amount of crowd control in here. And then you can see we do have Villanelle. Again, energy disintegration works very well. And then also Jerome is in here as a buffer. A lot of different flexes in here because if you do get an awakened hero, majority of the time it's going to be better to put the awakened hero in a formation just for the fact that you can actually get the SP effect very early, which can make a big difference. Now, for a long time, Rem was ran together with Ivan. Very easy to clear stages. Even looking at the one-hit wonders, which are Nara and then Brutus in here, they can do pretty well. And you'll also notice that Ivan is the one with the plus 30 signature item to really focus on that. Now, Jerome and Villanelle, again, very strong support. At this stage, whatever pet you get, the blue pets do work very well. This is mainly early game, chapter 1 to 31. Rendell at low investment is super strong. If you build him up, he is super broken, guys. Most of the teams are 1 DPS, 1 tank, 3 support. We have seen this kind of tried and true, that majority of the formations, and even thinking bigger picture as we kind of look out here, a majority of the formations will run 1 DPS, 1 tank, 1 crowd control, and then some support of some variation, or even kind of a mage support within there. Now, disclaimer, to the best comps, it depends on what you use. Now, I want to show you exactly the way, and honestly, the easiest way to do this, as much as I do love the guide. And again, big shout out to Suavera. I think it's Suavera's visual guide. But overall, when it does come to actually building out the formations, a big thing to note is the bottom right, you have the formation tab. it will show you the recommended formation. So these are players that have completed the formation. Now, one thing to note with this is when you're going through and you're looking at these formations, right here is the Blinda comp we literally just looked at. There's the Thoren cheese that we just looked at. There's the awakened version of Athalia, which again, this is kind of a one-off, and look, the twins are at legendary. But then we do have Iran. Again, this is kind of a heavy crowd control team. And then the final one in here, we do have the Envy comp, which again, we kind of seen in there, a couple different variations. And this is important because when it comes to the recommended tab, it will use the heroes that you possess. If you do not have or possess a hero, it will actually show you different heroes. It's supposed to be based on the roster of the heroes that you do possess. That way you're not getting formations that are just kind of out there. But you can also look at the popular tab and see, because even some of these at 4 trillion damage or 4 trillion for the combat rating, it's insane with some of the teams. And some of these can actually just sheer power through stages, which again, you can see those are all the same comps, even at 4 trillion in compared to running 368 billion. Massive, massive power deficiency for the same exact stage. Now, of course, as you progress within AFK Arena, the stages get easier. That is something to note, guys, is as more players progress further in the campaign, they are, and I think they call them dynamic stages. And for the last couple of years, when players start pushing more campaign progression, it makes it easier for players that are following them. So players that are really pushing the envelope in very end stages are going to make it easier for everyone else that is going to be following them. So, all right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.